Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to the Feel Good Factor. I'm Susmita Veganosaurus, and I'm so glad you could join me here today. Last week, on episode 28 of the Feel Good Factor, I interviewed Kuntal Joisher, the first vegan to climb Mount Everest. In part 1 of this two-part series, he shared his story about his inspiration, his family, how he even became a vegan mountaineer. We stopped right at the point where he was about to climb the summit of Mount Everest.
I went back in 2016 again.
Today, we pick up right where we left off.
And this time around, things went much better. We finished reaching the base camp. We finished the entire 35 days of what it takes to get acclimated to the mountain. So, to give a sense to the listeners, it takes almost about 55 to 60 days to climb Everest. And reaching the base camp is about 10 days. Then you adjust to the mountain, which is about 30 to 35 days. And then the final piece of days is where you ascend the mountain to the top. You come back down, you walk back to Lukla, a place from where you can take a flight to Kathmandu. It's stage one, stage two, and stage three. So we had finished stage one, getting to the base camp. We had finished stage two, which is finishing, getting adjusted to the mountain itself. And then stage three is where you finally ascend the mountain. And I still remember we were at camp four, which is the final camp on Everest. There are four camps after the base camp. Camp four is located at 26,000 feet. 26,000 feet and above is also known as the death zone. One of the big reasons is because a lot of people had died there, of course, which is why it's called the death zone. And
Hmm.
another reason is that human bodies cannot acclimatize naturally or even with the help of bottled oxygen in this zone. It's essentially that you're living on borrowed time in this zone. So you get into this zone and then your clock starts ticking. The more you are in this zone, the more likely that you will end up dying. The less you are in this zone, the better the chance that you will get out of this whole thing alive. So you get to camp 4, you spend a few hours resting your body, and then at around 9 o'clock in the night, you start walking to the top. You get to the top in the morning, you get back down, and you get out of there. That's sort of the regime that you follow.
So, after so many days and so many years, in fact, that led up to the moment, you can't even spend much time up there when you reach the
Right,
peak.
right. So of course we spend few hours resting, and then we start climbing at 9:30 in the night. We climb through the night, almost up to about 9:15, 9:20 in the morning, and then I'm like standing 10 meters away from the summit of Everest.
Hmm.
And as mountaineers, there's a lot of things that we talk about as to what we are going to do on the top of Everest. And one of the things that we truly discuss is what we are going to eat, which flag are we taking, and all these things were okay. I was not worried about what I'm going to eat or which flag I'm taking. These are all like smaller issues. I was more worried about I can't cry on top of Everest because that's everyone does that, and I'm like, I can't cry on Everest because crying is a big problem. When you cry, you generate tears, and tears can freeze and can get into trouble. Your eyes can stick, and so you can be temporarily blind on the mountain. And we
Oh.
had all heard about these kind of things. So I'm like, whatever happens, I have to stay safe. I cannot get in trouble, and I'm going to stay focused, and I'll get back down in one piece. But the moment I saw the summit of Everest, I don't know what happened. Tears were just rolling down like I could have like literally had a bucket with me and I could have filled that bucket. I mean, like I just could not stop the tears. And then tears gave way to like shouting, crying. And I'm like, why am I shouting? Like, I'm even questioning myself that why am I doing this? And I just kept doing that every step that I took. And finally, I made it to the top where my Sherpa Mingma Tenzi was waiting for me. And yeah, I think that moment when I stood on the top, I think it has to be one of the most magical moments of my entire life. And a lot of people ask me, why climb mountains? Why do this at all? What do you get out of climbing a lifeless piece of rock? And yes, it's a lifeless piece of rock. And yes, as a lot of people would call it a useless conquest, sure, all of those things are maybe true in their place. But for me, it was that journey that started in 2009, from getting to the top of that small peak and having a dream of chasing a certain state of mind, and then finally getting to the pinnacle of that journey and overcoming so many things and doing something that I always thought was impossible and finally turning it into possible and proving to myself that I can do this. It is when you reach the top, that was the feeling. It was an intense feeling, and I think that feeling is the reason, I think, why we climb, in addition to, of course, the journey of transformation that we take. But I think that moment on top of Everest made that entire journey worth it. And I spent 20 minutes on the top. So, as you rightly said, a 6, 7 year journey for just 20 minutes on the top. But those 20 minutes are by far the best 20 minutes of my 40 years of existence.
Mm.
And if I have to go back and climb to the top of that mountain again, which I anyways did, I would without hesitation do it again to get those 20 minutes back. So yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And also to bring in the vegan angle, constantly throughout the journey being said that you can't do it as a vegan, or like, vegan diet lacks protein, vegan diet lacks endurance, vegan diet lacks stamina. So it was constantly also something that I did not do it publicly. I did not go and publicly say I'm going to prove everyone wrong. That's not something that's my style anyway. But when I finally reached the top, when I finally did it, I think it was time to publicly say it that look, I did it and I did it as a vegan. So all this bullshit that you guys are talking about, none of that even stands. Because if a top mountaineer had gone vegan and climbed Everest, I can make the argument that that guy was already a mountaineer. That guy already had ate meat for all his life. So he already had built the stamina. But I was not even a mountaineer. Heck, I was, forget a mountaineer. I was actually on the opposite spectrum of things. So for me to take on this journey and do it on a vegan diet and get to the top, I think if I can do it as a vegan, then every single person on this planet can do everything that they dream of on a vegan diet. That vegan diet does not lack anything. So
Mm.
that became a huge thing, at least when I got to the top, especially in the later portion of the journey, to prove to everyone that this can be done on a vegan diet. So when I got to the top, of course, I did not carry an India flag, and I got get criticized for it quite a bit. But look, I am already a citizen of India. Why do I need to carry my flag all the time with me?
Mm.
Isn't it enough that I got to the top and I represent India in general?
Mm.
So don't need to carry my nationalism or don't need to carry a flag all the time. But what I do needed to carry was a vegan flag because not many people know about it,
Mm.
and I'm just passionate about the cause. So I had a vegan flag with me and I took a picture with that on the top, and that was really important for me to do that. And I did that. I had a satellite phone, so I wanted to speak to my dad. I think every time you do a certain big thing in your life, like if you get a first rank, or if you come first in a race, or if you get your first paycheck, you always want to sort of tell your parents, get some validation from them.
Mm.
And for me also that was the case. And so I called my dad and I told him that I have achieved the biggest dream of my life. And of course he did not understand, but for me it was important to tell him that I did it,
Mm.
that he was with me right up there in spirit. So yeah, that's what happened in 2016. It was May 19th, and I got back down safely. That tends to be a very critical part that a lot of people miss out, that it's not getting to the top that matters.
Mm.
It's getting back down alive and in one piece without losing any fingers or toes or anything is what matters at the end of the day. I got back down safely and fine and without any problems.
Wow, that is quite a journey. And so, what made you want to go do this again? And was the second time doing it easier, smoother, better? What was it the second time around? And when you reached that summit for the second time, was the feeling the same?
See, even though I did it on a vegan diet, unfortunately in 2016, when I reached the top, I was still wearing a jacket, which is called a one piece suit, which is a very critical piece of gear, and it keeps us warm in temperatures of almost minus 45, minus 50 degrees Celsius. And that suit was made from down, and down is the feathers of a slaughtered duck.
Mm.
So, as much as I wanted to do the climb as a vegan, I ended up wearing a dead animal on my body. And when I came home, every time I went to a talk, every time I went to speak to people, every time I wrote a Facebook post, or every time I thought about the climb myself, at the back of my mind and in my conscience, I knew that I was not a vegan when I climbed Everest. And yes, people can say vegan diet or 99% vegan, but I knew that there's no such thing. Either you are a vegan or you're not, or at least as much as practically possible. We know that we can't remove animal cruelty 100%. That simply cannot happen in given today's world. But I constantly kept thinking that I should have tried harder to find the replacement for that suit. And I did try a lot for 3 4 years leading up to the climb. I wrote to so many companies. I thought of building one of my own, and every single sort of experiment, every single call to these big gear manufacturers, all just did not work out. Everyone thought I was mad, that you will get yourself killed on this mountain, and something will go wrong. And so then I said, and maybe this is just a cop out, but my thinking was that, hey, maybe let's go and first get this piece of vegan diet climbing Everest out of the way, and then I'll work harder to build the suit. But now that I have the momentum on my side, maybe I should check off this first bit. And that's the sort of thing that was going on in my mind, where I ended up buying this jacket and making the summit of Everest on this jacket. But when I came home, I was constantly thinking about this, and I decided that I want to work harder and I want to figure out a way to build this suit that almost seems like an impossible project again. So I started writing to a lot of gear companies, and this friend of mine said, "Why don't you write to this company called Save the Duck in Italy? They don't have any mountaineering gear, but their insulation seems to be pretty reasonable." So I wrote to Save the Duck. I said, "Look, this is the kind of temperatures I'll be facing, the kind of terrain I'll be facing. Can your insulation help me?" And they wrote back to me saying, "We are positive. We are very confident about our insulation. And though it has never been tested in the temperatures that you are mentioning, we think that it should be able to thrive in those temperatures." So I'm like, okay. We went through a cycle of about 8 months of research and development, and then we created one of the first synthetic suits of the world, something that was 100% animal free and did not have any feathers. Half of the suit was made from recycled plastic bottles, and half of the suit was made from virgin plastic. So it was a combination of recycled and virgin plastic from which we created this entire suit. And it was time to go and test out the suit. And I had to test it on myself because there was no one else who would be even willing to test the suit or risk their life. I would be risking my life, of course, but my fingers, my toes, anything could go wrong. So I decided I will not climb Everest first. Maybe I'll go and climb a slightly smaller mountain, which is at 28,000 feet. So still only 1,000 feet lower than Everest. Similar conditions, similar everything. Maybe if the suit doesn't work, then I still have a chance to back out. So I went and I climbed the mountain. In May of 2018, I ended up summiting Lhotse, which is the fourth highest mountain of the world. I got to the top fine. I came back down fine. I did not even have a scratch on my body or a cough infection or any kind of semblance of cold. The suit was super warm, kept me super cozy. And when I was able to get to the top and back down, I knew that it's time now to go to Everest. This time around, I decided that I would climb Everest on the Tibetan route. Now, the first time in 2016 when I climbed Everest, I climbed it from the Nepal side, following the footsteps of Sherpa Tenzing and Sir Edmund Hillary, because they were my idols and I wanted to follow their footsteps. Second time, I thought I have already seen the Nepal side so many times. Now, I want to see the opposite side of the mountain, which starts from China or from Tibet, and that I'll climb that side. Another reason that I decided to climb from Tibet is that it's supposed to be colder, it's supposed to be windier, and it's supposed to be more technical and more harsh. So I thought that if the suit can be sort of tested in some of the most hostile conditions on the planet, then I can prove without a doubt that this suit works and that no one can really question the authenticity of this suit. So signed up for the climb, showed up at Everest Base Camp in April of 2019, went through the process, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, finally got to the last camp, which is much higher inside the death zone. It's called Camp 3, and it's at almost 27,000 feet, and it is the highest campsite on our planet Earth. We started at 9:30 in the night from there. We went through the night. I think we passed by about four dead bodies that night, and I still remember seeing my first dead body on the right hand side. I think he possibly had fallen down. It was quite a bit of shock for me seeing a dead body like this when I'm so closer to my dream.
Wait, up until then, through your multiple climbs, there were many people who had died. You had never seen the dead bodies before?
No, I had seen dead bodies before, but I had never seen a dead body that higher up the mountain
Ah,
and disfigured in such a way and preserved in such a way. This guy potentially could have died 30 years ago and he was still lying there out in the open.
wow.
So it was a little bit of a shock and sort of a reminder as well at the same time that if I make any mistake, this is exactly what is going to happen to me as well. I will become this milestone point on the ridge. Hey, this is where this guy is dead, so you can maybe rest there. People will like use me as a milestone. And I didn't want to become that, of course. So both Mingma and I like really focused hard that night. And at 5:30 the next morning, we were standing on the top of Everest. How was I feeling? I have to tell you, as much as I thought that I would feel exactly the same way that I felt the first time, I actually did not. I was like, let's get the heck out of here. That's the only thing that was going in my mind.
Hmm.
No rush, no excitement, nothing. I'm like, just okay. In a sense, it was more of a clinical effort rather than an emotional effort. I mean, I have climbed Everest. There's nothing left to prove to anyone or to prove to myself. It's just that this piece of dream that was pending that needs to be finished and needs to be finished in a safe fashion. So that is all that was going on in my mind. And 2019 was a terrible year. I think about almost 30 climbers died across many 8,000-meter mountains, including 11 on Everest.
Hmm.
And I'm like, look, this cannot happen to me. Of course, it'll be bad for my family, it'll be bad for myself, but it'll be bad for the vegan movement in general because when something negative happens to our movement, it becomes huge news.
Oh, yeah.
People would have said, guy dies climbing Everest wearing a synthetic suit.
Hmm.
It would have been terrible PR for the movement. And both Mingma and I were conscious of this fact, and we were like, let's keep the emotion aside. Let's focus on getting to the top as fast as we can, taking our pictures, and getting back down as fast as we can without getting injured or anything. And then time for emotion can always wait. In that sense, it was sort of a very emotionless summit. And on top of that, I was a bit cold as well because the summit was at 5:30 in the morning. A lot of wind was blowing, the temperatures were like really low. I was a bit cold on the top, and I'm like, Mingma, let's spend some time, let's get our pictures. But we have done it. We are feeling really strong, so we should be easily be able to get down in time. And only once I reached the camp and both Mingma and I were inside the tent, we were waiting for our other teammate to return. And so we had a whole bunch of time on our hand. It's, I think, that point I like really broke down in the tent and I was like crying like a baby. And I was telling Mingma, can I make a phone call home? I would really like to talk to my family. And Mingma removed his satellite phone, and the moment he turned on his satellite phone, the battery conked off, and I'm like, shit.
Uh oh.
The moment when I want to talk to my family, I can't. But anyway, he was there. He has been like a huge support system for me for the last 5 years, and together, both of us made it back down safely, and it was a pretty good experience. I think if I go back to Everest again, which I won't, but if I go back to Everest again and get to the top, I think the third time would be like a great experience because now that I've finished my dream and there's really nothing to prove in terms of vegan gear or vegan food, I think it would just be a summit done personally for myself, and I think I would be able to enjoy it a lot better. But yeah, this the second time was like I every time I remember, I was like, I did not enjoy the summit at all from the perspective or from comparison to the first time where I was so
Hmm.
like those 20 minutes of 2016 I still feel are like the best 20 minutes. And 2019, even though I truly finished my dream, the time spent on the summit was like, okay, I did it. That's it.
Kuntal, so where do you go from here? You said you're 40 and you've achieved your greatest goals, greatest dreams. How do you get back to normal life after this? How do you get back to day to day things? And how do you make sure you have something to look forward to? Or do you not feel the need to look forward to anything? How do you go forward from this kind of a point?
Um, I think it's a mix of everything. I mean, right now, temporary, just momentarily, because COVID 19 has happened, it sort of made everyone stay back. I mean, we are all indoors, we are all in a lockdown, and that's what the smartest and the most responsible thing to do is. So, in that way, it's sort of making me like look at everything and see that I cannot take anything for granted. Just going for the walk in the garden, which I used to think it was so boring that I should always go out and hike. Now I can't even go to walk in the garden. I have to walk in my building just round in circles. And so it sort of helped me appreciate so many things a lot better. Being at home, I'm also able to spend time with my newborn daughter who's 5 months old. So something that I would not have been able to do because I would have gone and climbed more mountains and I would have been away much longer throughout the year from her. So I'm at home, I'm spending time with her. So I'm always of this thing that let's create another goal and let's go on this journey again. Then life would just become something where it's just this series of these repeated journeys
Mm,
and these series of these repeated transformations that you're constantly going through, with an end goal being you're constantly learning and becoming a better version of yourself and hopefully even a better human being at the end of the whole experience. And then you set a new goal and then you do the journey again. And I think as privileged people we can do this,
mm,
which is where I think we should do this. We must do this. And hopefully, we can also contribute towards creating a world where this does not just remain a privilege that everyone can do this. This is one thing, but at the same time, I also don't think I want to be constantly in the mode that I have something to look forward to. I think it's okay to just have a life where I'm just taking it easy and taking it day by day,
mm,
just taking it easy for a bit. I don't need to have a goal right now, even though I have one, but it's postponed until 2021, so I'm okay. This is what it is. This is how life is. Sometimes when you are on the mountains, you get hit by avalanches, you get hit by snowstorms, and you have to take a break, you have to take a step back. And so you take a step back, weather it out, and then you are ready for your next dream a lot better.
mm,
So for me, I'm in that mode right now. Of course, I have a dream for the next year. I want to go and I want to climb the tallest mountains of all the seven continents. I have already climbed three continents, so there are four continents that are pending. There's North America, there's Antarctica, there's Europe, there's Australia. So there's continents that are remaining that I would like to climb, and I will embark on this journey in the coming year. But until then, I'm at home. I'm working on staying fit. I'm working on eating healthy food, spending time with my family, and just having a really positive mindset and being ready for whenever things become better, that I'll be able to go on these journeys again. So yeah, in a way, I'm not someone who really plans for the future so much. I'm someone who enjoys living in the present moment, and this may sound very cliche, but it is what it is.
oh no, it's something that everybody actually needs all the time because there is so much pressure to do this, do that. But we can achieve anything at all only if we spend enough time also being in the present moment. That is the only thing that's going to help us through any other achievements or any other
Right.
moments. So, makes a lot of sense what you said. Kuntal, it was beautiful as always listening to your story and finding out more about what inspired the whole thing and your family and all those things. And that's very nice to know. I've spoken to you before. I've heard your story of especially your first summit climb, and I can never tire of listening to it again and again. It just it's like one of those how when we were kids and we would hear a bedtime story and we would still ask our parents or grandparents to just repeat it again. It's like that with your first summit climb, and I'm sure it's going to be beautiful for your daughter to hear it from you as she grows up too. So thank you so much for making the time, for sharing this with us. If people want to find out more about you, if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
I think I'm more active on social media, so I'm more active on Facebook and I'm quite active on Instagram. So I think it would be best to follow me on Facebook or follow me on Instagram. Instagram, they can follow at Kuntal J, Kuntalj. And Facebook, they can just search for me, Kuntal Joisher, and there's only one in the world, so they should just be able to find me. So yeah, They can personal message me or anything. If I can help in being a catalyst in anyone else's journey, maybe journey of climbing Everest, or maybe the journey of becoming a vegan or anything, if I can be of any help, I always welcome people writing into me. I try and respond to every single message that I get. So yeah, they can reach out to me for sure.
Sure, and I'm going to put your links to Instagram and Facebook in the show notes so people can easily find you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Kuntal. Bye.
Thank you so much.
If you've been enjoying the Feel Good Factor, tell somebody about it and subscribe to the show on your preferred podcasting app. I'd also really appreciate a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. You can find my podcast on Podchaser by going to podchaser.com/veganosaurus. VEGANOSAURUS. On Podchaser, you can rate and review not just the podcast but also any specific episodes that you love. To be notified about upcoming podcast episodes and more feel good factor news, subscribe to my email list on my website. Go to www.veganosaurus.com and scroll down to the bottom to subscribe to the mailing list. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Feel Good Factor. I'm Susmita Veganosaurus, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again very soon. Bye!